Now, initially, I hit you up to talk KD. And then the reports came out. KD probably not interested in coming here. It was like Houston and a bunch of other teams.
He wants San Antonio.
I might injure him myself. If that was, I mean, that would be so annoying. Dude. Why do they get everything? My whole life. My whole life. That can't be a thing.
Yeah.
But if it were, can you at least explain to Pistons fans why it makes sense to have a Kevin Durant on this team? Or am I tripping?
So, like, and when I talked about this in the pod a little bit, at first I was like, absolutely not. I would not do it. But as I thought about it a little bit more, if you could get KD without giving up, like, future assets, then, yeah, obviously, it's Kevin Durant. He just shot crazy from the field last year. He's still an insane shot maker. He's still an insane offensive scorer in this league. So if you could get him without giving up offensive or future assets, I mean, yeah, why not? You probably get him. The expectation is whatever team he gets traded to, he's going to sign a 2-year extension with. So you're basically betting that KD from 37 to 40 years old is still going to be an all-star, borderline all-NBA player. And I know we've kind of got accustomed to older players kind of surviving that long, so a lot of people think he can do it. I hope he can. But that would be the risk there. But, I mean, I guess me and my friends were talking about it yesterday, and it really comes down to, do you believe if the Pistons traded for Kevin Durant, that within the next 3 years, him and Cade could get out the East? If you believe so, then okay, sure, go ahead. Because I don't think it would cause you to lose all of your assets to get Kevin Durant. It sounds like the offers are going lower and lower because he is 37 years old, and the last few teams who have given up a ton for him has not worked very well out for him. So I'm assuming most teams do not want to give up that much for him. So, like, yeah, if you got him for, I don't know, like 1 first, and Tobias probably would have to be a salary match, and then I don't know. I mean, you probably plug stuff around, but you don't want to give up too many future assets for a 37-year-old. My point is, you only really do this deal if you think as soon as we get Kevin Durant, we can come out the East within the next 3 years and be a legit title contender. If you think that happens, then sure, go ahead. But I have questions on, even if they did get KD, I'm not sure if they get out the East even with that. So I don't know if I'd give up first-round capital for a guy that's 37 if I don't think they can get out the East within the next 2 years.
Who's the bully in the East? Hold up on that one.
It's not about – there's no real bully in the East right now. It's more so that I think getting KD helps your half-court offense, but I think the rest of the Pistons' problems still are there. And then if you get KD and you sign him to this 2-year extension, which I think it would be like $62 and $67 million, you don't really have much cap space to address the issues I think this team still very much would have, which is defense out at the 4 position, depth at the 4 position, more guards that don't get picked on defensively and that you can actually play in a playoff rotation and not, go from Malik to THA, back to Malik, back to THA. Like, I think this team has yes, they would get better if they got KD, but I think they would have issues like, for example, Indiana is in the finals because they're like 10, 11 deep, and they can just throw 10 guys at you, and they're all really good. I don't think the Pistons get deeper. They would get much more top-heavy, but I don't know if that would still, I don't know if that helps them beat the Indiana team. It helps them beat them, but I don't know if that puts them over the top against Indiana. And I'm higher than most on New York going into next year. I think New York will be better. But the East is definitely weaker than the West, so you definitely could have a chance. I just don't know if the problems that the Pistons have get solved by the half-court offensive issues but the rest of the issues still are there.
I agree. I think whoever moves on KD we're trying to win a championship in the next 2 years, so that's why we're bringing in Kevin Durant, and that's why Houston I could definitely see doing it. I could definitely see New York doing it, or even San Antonio, but another guy that you talk about with the 4, you talked about the depth there, and I feel like he's been brought up for the past 3 years when we talk about the Pistons getting 4. Big ass shotgun, look like Lauri Markkanen. Like, do you think that is that a possibility again? I feel like we talk about it every summer.
So Lauri Markkanen, I think, is probably the most realistic option this offseason, and I would be for it. The question with Lauri is this: you're basically asking yourself, 2 years ago, he was an all-star, and he had the best year of his career. He was absolutely fantastic 2 years ago. The year after that, he still was pretty much the same efficiency, but just less volume, didn't score quite as much, but I think he was probably just as good that year. This past year, he really fell off. Efficiency fell off the cliff. He only played, I believe, in 44 games this past year. So the question that you ask with Lauri is, do you think that he is Do you think he is closer to the guy that we saw 2 years ago and 3 years ago, or is this last year a sign that he's fallen off or he's not really that player anymore? I tend to believe that this past year had a lot to do with the fact that Utah Jazz were trying everything possible to lose, and that they were going to sit him games, they were going to put on bad players on the floor, they were doing everything possible to try to get the best odds in the draft to try to get Cooper Flagg, and I think that has a lot to do with why he's missed so many games this past year, and then even games 2 years ago. So I tend to believe he's more of the player still 2-3 years ago when he's asked to be a second best player or third best player on the team. I think he can do that still again. I think he's a very versatile offensive scorer. The way in which he's able to, he's a 7-foot power forward that can jump out the building, can shoot off screens, can shoot off movement, can pull up over guys, can shoot off the dribble. He's not the greatest playmaker, but the way in which you utilize him, you're not really asking him to be a playmaker. Like, if he could be a playmaker, I'd obviously make him better, but that's not really how you're weaponizing him. He's an incredibly versatile and skilled offensive player at the 4 position, and it really is the exact type of offensive player you probably would want next to Cade, at least how I'd want next to Cade. The other issue is what is it? The
pick and pop. I just want someone who can pick and pop.
And a guy that if you run a screen and roll with them and they switch to try to take away the pick and pop, he is going to obliterate that matchup. He can get to the rim on a guard. He can just raise up over a guard. You can run him off-ball screens, and he can score like that, something that not many 4s can do. You can run a pin down for him. He's coming up flying off, and he's going to hit a movement 3 at the wing. Like, that's just different type of gravity that the Pistons just haven't had. He can attack a closeout, comes off the pin down, they get out there on it, pump fake, he can get to the basket. He's very efficient from the free throw line as well. Offensively, he's a really, really, really good offensive player. Defensively, he's not the greatest defender. I would argue he's a better defender than Tobias simply because he's bigger, stronger, and rebounds better. Mm-hmm. But he is not the greatest defender, and that definitely is a weakness of his. But my argument to that would then be the Pistons had a top 8 defense with Tobias Harris and THJ in the lineup after January. You're telling me it's just going to get worse with Lauri Markkanen instead of Tobias? I don't buy it. And with a full season of Ausar Thompson and probably a better 2 starting next to Cade than THJ, I don't buy that Lauri Markkanen is just going to crash your defense. The Utah Jazz's defense has been fine with him. Not fine, but it's been better with him on the floor each of the past 3 years anyways, according to BBP stats and NBA.com. So I don't think that just having Lauri on your floor is just killing your defense if you have the personnel around him to make up for it, which I do think the Pistons have in Ausar Thompson. So the other thing, last thing that comes up with Markkanen is his contract, because a few years ago, he was probably the best contract in the NBA for how he was playing. Then he got extended. Now you're actually paying him. I don't have the exact numbers for his contract up. I should have brought it up. But I believe it's around like $45-ish million a year now from here on out. I got the numbers right. Yeah, 46, 46, 49, 53.
Yep.
And that's around, right now it would be 30% of the cap, then 27, then 26, then 26. So would you be willing to pay Lauri Markkanen that much of your cap? And I think people look at the number that it is, like $46 million sounds insane. $53 million sounds insane. But then my question to you would be this. Would you pay your second best player or third best player if he eventually becomes that? Because I think Ausar could still end up being the second most impactful player just because of his defense. But let's say he's the second best player anyways. Are you willing to pay the second best player in your team 26% of the cap? Yeah, like that's probably how it's going to work. Do you think Lauri Markkanen can be the second best player on the Pistons and they can build a team around him, Cade, Ausar, whatever, and they can be a threat in the East over the next 3 years with him taking up that percentage of the cap? If you think so, I say you definitely should do the trade. I think that they definitely could. He's the type of player I very much want at the 4 next to Cade. I don't think his struggles last year were really about him. I think it's more about Utah. The only concern I really have in all of this is Danny Ainge going to try to fleece you, and is he going to operate in good faith? If he's going to come to you and ask, we want Ivy, 3 first-round picks, and Brian Holland, I'm like, dude, like, come on, chill out. But if you're able to get him for a reasonable deal that makes sense for both sides, I would definitely be going after Markkanen in this offseason. I'm pretty high on him.
Yeah,
I would think Ainge gets out of you though. We all know he kind of takes someone to behind the shed with
those trades. But he's got so much
he don't care. It's Danny Ainge.
That is true.
The thing is that and my friend Hal on Twitter has said this a few times, but the problem that Ainge put himself in was that a few years ago, like I said, he was on the best contract in the league. That was the best time to trade for him. That if you wanted to capitalize on his value, that was the best time to trade him. Now, after a down year and whatever team's trading for him is also accepting okay, he's coming off a down year, and we have to pay him 46, 47, 40, that much money. Teams probably are not going to offer him the same amount amount of value in return for that. And over the last 2 years, it didn't really feel like Utah actually was trying to trade him. It felt like they paid him and felt like, okay, we're going to it kind of like, it's a very rough example, but kind of like what OKC did with SGA, where it's like, we don't want to trade you, we're going to extend you, but during these first 2 years, sorry, we're going to tank because we want to build a team, and you just got to be okay with it. It felt like that's what more so they were trying to do with Lauri Markkanen, and then now is really when they're like, okay, we got to move him. We got to move him for some assets. It is what it is. We got to kind of recalibrate here. So I don't think Danny Ainge is going to, if they actually want to move him this offseason, he's not going to get this crazy deal for him.
Yeah.
Maybe he's stubborn. He holds on to him and just doesn't trade him. That definitely could happen. We've seen Danny Ainge do it before. But the most I could see being given up for Lauri Markkanen, I don't even want to say the Pistons package, because as soon as you're trading anybody with the Pistons, fans go crazy. But it would probably be something like, you need Tobias in it because it has to be salary match.
Yep.
Either Tobias or Stu, and I don't think you want to move Stu. So it's probably Tobias, a first, and then maybe one of the young guys. My guess would be Tobias, Ivy, and a distant first. That's what I think would be probably the package around Lauri.
Why do you hate Ivy so much? Oh my God.
I mean, that just seems like the realistic package for me. I feel like Ainge will probably try to get multiple first. I'm not doing that. Really, the value that you're giving up there is just Ivy in first, because Tobias is just viewed as the salary match. So really, would you trade Ivy and a 28 first for Lauri Markkanen is basically what you should be asking yourself. I probably would.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people probably would not want to give up Ivy for him. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I think that's what the deal would probably look like.
And
would you
there
do that,
is... Huh?
Would you do that,
I would do that, yeah, for sure. Miles Turner keeps getting brought up. And, I would love Miles Turner on this team. I think that would be perfect. But... is that realistic? Is Indiana just going to let him go after they're probably going to get their ass whooped here in the rest of the series, but after making this finals run, they can't just move on from him, can they? Now, finally, after 10 years where they're like, are we going to trade him? You finally make the finals, and now you get rid of him?
Right. No, I don't think it's realistic. I think it sounds like there was a reporting over the last few days that they want to extend him to a $30 million average per year contract. I think that's probably what's going to happen. My takeaway from the Pistons constantly being linked to these stretch bigs is, and I talked about this on the podcast the last few days, is there's either two things are happening here. Either one, and this very well could be the case because we're in off-season mode and right before the free agency, agents are just linking guys to teams that maybe could be potentially interested in them to try to drive up their players' value. That very well could be what's happening here. They know the Pistons are a team trying to get better, may want a big. Let's go ahead and link the Pistons, drive up this price, try to get rumors started, whatever. That very well could be what happens. If that's not what's happening, the next thing I think about is, okay, this gives you at least a little bit of an insight into how at least somebody in the Pistons organization feels about their big man room. Like that, it tells me that maybe at least there's a little smoke to, and again, maybe it's just the agent thing. Maybe it's reading too much into it, but it's not just him. It was also Naz Reid. We've heard about them, and even last offseason, they were trying to get Nicholas Claxton. They were trying to link to Brook Lopez. I saw a report a few days ago that maybe the Pistons could go after Brook Lopez and free. It's been a year now, ever since Trajan took over, that we've seen him linked to these stretch big type of bigs. So to me, if it's not the agent thing, it just tells me that at least there's a little smoke to the idea of, can Ausar and Durant play together? Yes. Or are we maximizing the potential ceiling of whatever Ausar, Cade, whatever could be offensively with a non-shooting big, or would it be better if we had a stretch big? What would that look like? To me, it feels like it may be at least a little smoke into that thought process, but I don't know if we'll know that until really draft time.
Do you think Pistons fans would be big enough to say they'd rather have Miles Turner than Jalen Duren?
No.
Yeah, no. I don't think so.
No.
Not after the beef.
No.
Not after the beef.
Yeah,
he plays with Legos. Yeah, but he also shoots the ball pretty fucking well.
Plays defense.
And plays great perimeter defense, too. Like, the way he's moving his feet, dude.
No, he's really good.
Pistons fans, man. Love them, but
I respect them.
Trajan, they ride for their guys.
Yeah, I guess you got to respect that part of it. But Trajan actually coming in, even bringing Tobias, he knows stretch stand floor with Cade Cunningham. If you have a playmaker like that, that's really all you need.
Yeah, I mean,
well, not all you need, but
first, I think it's not just Pistons fans. It's literally fan bases across the whole NBA. I don't know. I'm not going to speak to other sports, but NBA fan base. I mean, I saw people on Twitter the other day, like, I can't believe I'm watching NBA fan bases say they don't want Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's not just the Pistons. Like, there's multiple. There's fan bases. Yeah, like there's fan bases everywhere that believe that their guy is the next Giannis, that their guy is the next star. Every single guy is the next star. Therefore, you don't want to move off him. So it's not just Pistons fans, but I will say that the Pistons are in a unique position this offseason because I don't know, like based off their free agency flexibility, their only real way of getting better is either through trade. Or just assuming that everyone's going to get better and you get better off internal development. So I don't think they can really do anything in free agency, which is why it's like they were linked to Santi Aldama a few days ago. Mm-hmm. They've been linked to quite a few free agents, but based on how they have, if they operate as an over-the-cap team, all they can offer is Malik Beasley as MLE, and then they have nothing else. So how are they, like, that's what makes me think it might be just agents stirring up rumors, because I don't see, unless the Pistons have a deal with Brooklyn where they take off a lot of their salary or something, I don't see how they're really going after any of these guys. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do.
Is Bobby Klitman the future of the force?
Pistons fans will tell you.
Look, listen. Bobby is a great person. He's a great guy. Seriously, a great guy. I got to ask him a few questions. Great dude. Did you guys get to watch him a little bit, like in all the garbage time throughout the season?
Yeah.
Like, look, maybe he gets better. If he gets better, that'd be great. I'm not saying these guys can't get better, but a team just made the 6th seed. Your expectations is to win a first-round series. Banking on that, it just seems like counterproductive, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's fair.
You mentioned the MLE exception for Malik. Any of these trades stopping that from happening at all, you think?
What is it?
The Malik Beasley. I guess, like, how much is he gonna want? Are these trade scenarios going to stop us from re-signing Malik Beasley?
So the way, as long as the Pistons operate as over the cap, they can do things in a certain order to where even if it did, they could just re-sign Malik first and then make like another deal official after. But no, nothing they do trade-wise. I mean, the only thing that actually could impact them trade-wise is if they decide to use the MLE as a trade exception. They can just use the money instead of re-signing Malik. They could use that money, the $14 million, as a way to absorb a contract and trade instead. But it seems like that's not what they want to do. Them re-signing Malik shouldn't have an impact on whatever. How they want to re-sign Malik could, like if they want to become a cap space team, then give him the $16 million, then that changes some things how they want to operate. But just simply re-signing Malik in whatever way, no, that shouldn't stop them from making a trade if they want to. No.
You think you can command more than $14 million though in the open market?
So the thing is that the only team with cap space this offseason as of right now is Brooklyn. Every other team is either in the second apron, a first apron, or above the cap. So the most that any team can offer him outside of Brooklyn, which I don't think anyone really expects Brooklyn to go try to give Malik Beasley a bag. Outside of Brooklyn, the most anyone can offer him is what the Pistons will offer him, which is the $14 million exception. So every team can offer him that exception that's above the cap and below the first apron. So as long as any teams in that area can offer him the exact same amount as the Pistons. Unless a team tries to create cap space to offer him more to give him away from Detroit, which, again, I don't think teams are going to do. Yeah. It seems like the most he's going to get is $14 million.
That's great. That's phenomenal.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
The new apron stuff is changing.
No more Mike Conley contracts given.
Yeah, man.
God,
well,
you know
what's super interesting, which I wanted to ask. I had Keith Smith of Spot Track on the podcast a few days ago.
Hell yeah.
I didn't think about it until yesterday. I really wish I could have got to ask him, but I could be completely wrong here. But based on how I'm reading things, if there's no one with cap space, and Brooklyn's the only team with cap space, and everyone only has room exceptions that are below the first apron, does that mean like these free agents that maybe could go for more are going to be forced to sign for like the $5 million exception? They're going to be forced to sign with the vet min or whatever because there's just not teams with money this offseason. So maybe the Pistons could get someone really good for $5 million simply because teams don't have the money this offseason. We're already seeing it sounds like Tyus Jones is going to have to sign for a minimum contract.
Dude, I would take Tyus Jones so quick.
Malcolm Brogdon, they're saying he's going to have to sign for a minimum contract. So I wonder if like maybe one of these guys that people think the Pistons could really use, that, oh yeah, they're definitely getting $14 million. They're definitely getting that, whatever. Maybe they don't actually get that. Maybe it's another Malik Beasley scenario where it's like, okay, he's worth more than that, but he ends up signing for a 1 year, $6 million, 1 year vet min to try to raise his value for the following season. Yeah. I think the Pistons could sneak in there and maybe get that off, which with how the free agency looks, with Brooklyn only being the only team with cap, and it sounds like Brooklyn's going to use it to absorb contracts and get trades off. It doesn't sound like they're going to use it in free agency. So I'm interested to see how this whole free agency stuff works out.
I was just about to say, so you're saying, like, if Kevin Durant gets moved, let's say to Houston, that means Fred VanVleet is probably going to end up on Brooklyn because they're the only team that can absorb a contract like that?
It sounds like they could do a few things because Houston has a few matching salaries that they could use to trade for KD. It just depends on, what team wants.
Yeah.
I think I don't think like Phoenix would want Fred VanVleet. Maybe they want Fred VanVleet and they just, they take him back. But if they don't want the salary that's coming back to him, yes, Brooklyn's the only team. And that's why you see Brooklyn, all the 3-team mock trades or whatever, because they're the only ones that can absorb a contract. So yeah, technically, if they wanted to reroute Fred VanVleet, it would be to Brooklyn. They could do it with Jalen Green, even though I think Houston or Phoenix would probably want to hold on to Jalen Green. But like any of them that they decide to move, they would get rerouted to Brooklyn, and then Brooklyn maybe gets a pick for doing it, a pick or two or something.
I can't wait to see how this affects the NBA like down the line with like bigger names when they hit the market. It's going to be kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Rookie contracts are more valuable than ever now. Those first-round picks are more valuable than ever.
That's why I think that something to watch for. I think the Pistons might trade up with Brooklyn in the draft because Brooklyn has, I think, 3 or 4 first-round picks. They can't use all of them. They can't draft all of them. They're definitely going to. Maybe they package them to move even higher. Who knows? But if there's a team that has a first-round pick that you can go and trade up for, because now with all these prospects going back to college, that 37 overall pick is no longer that valuable for the Pistons. Yeah. So could the Pistons, I think, use the 37th pick and maybe Marcus Sasser to try to trade up with, Brooklyn. Maybe Brooklyn likes Sasser. Maybe they want to take that on. They get another asset later on. I think they definitely could because you are right. I think, especially if you're Trajan, I had someone bring this up to me the other day, and it's a good point. If you're Trajan, you only really have one of your guys here. You have 2, I guess, Bobby and Ron, but only one of these guys are really your guys. And GMs love to draft. GMs love to go get their guys. They love to be able to say, this guy hit, I got this guy. And especially in your second year, and especially like you mentioned, with rookie contracts, being able to get guys who are cheap, cost-controlled, team-controlled, that can impact on their rookie contract, I definitely can see a future where Trajan's like, okay, I'm going to trade up into the first round, get this guy I think can really help us right now, and just I haven't really gotten the chance to get my guys. So I think Brooklyn's a candidate to definitely trade up with. They're not going to use all their first-round picks. I don't think it's possible.
And real quick, Koo, before we get you out of here, you talked about your guy Trajan wanting his guy Trey Murphy. There are talks about him. Is that something that if you're going in for Lauri Markkanen, I feel like Trey Murphy would be right there too, and that's his guy.
Yeah, look, if they could get Trey Murphy, I'd give up everything. Not everything, but I'd give up way more than for Lauri than I would for. I would give up more for Trey than I would for Lauri. Like I would give up multiple picks for Trey, but I heard a few days ago, and once the whole report started coming out that maybe the Pelicans move off of everybody, I went and asked somebody really respected about is Trey Murphy available, and they said flat out no, it's not happening. So I don't think Trey's being traded.
Cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. I know you get the Jaden Ivey article you just put out. What else you got going on?
Yeah, so I got some more season reviews coming out. The Jaden Ivey season review was the best. Everyone loved that one. They had the most views, most reactions. Everyone loved it. So I gained the most subs off of it. So I'm glad everyone enjoyed it. I have some more reviews coming. We might do Cade's season review next. I'm going to do some film breakdowns over the best, worst games of the year, what to improve on, what needs to stay, etc. We got a lot of stuff coming to you guys over on the Substack. You can find it over at Piston Kudos on Substack. Obviously, you guys can find me, daily podcast, Locked On Pistons, every single day. Whatever podcast platform you find it on, you can follow me on Twitter, @Kukio. But, yeah, man, appreciate you guys having me on. Hopefully next time you guys have me on, something's happened in the NBA because it sounds like it's going to be an absolute crazy next 2 weeks in the NBA if Shams is correct.